Salary Transparent Sheet started as a TikTok account, and you might have seen them if you're on social media, where they go up and like interview people on the street and ask them, how much money do you make? And so she's been building this email list for 2 years. And again, as we know, like an email list is an asset. I think many creators still don't fully understand how valuable it is. Just this week, Plaid bought This Week in FinTech, proves that same model as we've been seeing like works. A $1 billion company might be interested in the thing that I'm building and the audience that I have.
You see that trend continuing, or is the window closing, I guess? I'm curious.
I think we're at just the very, very...
Hey, welcome to New Media, the podcast all about new media. I'm your host, Kolby, and I'm here with Taylor Cromwell. Hi, Taylor.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course. Would you want to give an intro to the listeners?
Yeah, so I write a newsletter called Creator Diaries, basically exploring how people are building businesses in the creator economy. And I've worked for the past couple of years as a writer and a strategist working with creator companies. And basically, I'm just obsessed with all things creator economy and how people are building cool, fun businesses. And yeah, I'm excited to kind of chat more about what you're hearing in the new media space.
Absolutely. And you just joined StoryArb too, right? Did I get that right?
Yes, I'm also a writer for StoryArb, so we can dive into more of what we're doing there, but basically building, content motions, newsletters, etc., for like B2B companies as well.
Nice. And so you write at Creator Diaries, you write about the creator to founder transition. And at Grow Letter, we work with a lot of creators who I think are trying to make that transition. They've grown an audience. They're starting to think seriously about it, how to turn this into a media business. And you sent something that was really interesting, which is not all creator-led media entities are media businesses, or rather, being a creator does not mean you're a media business. So I'm curious what your thoughts are there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that I am really excited by the potential to build a media business. But I think a lot of creators don't necessarily have that same vision. And I think, oh, well, I don't necessarily want to, build this next media company. So like email, for example, is not my play, or like that they don't see themselves as their lane to kind of follow. And I think kind of the space that I'm really interested in is this like creator-led media where they're using their channels, their short form content, their LinkedIn profile, etc., as like top of funnel. And obviously you need email, you need an email list to get beyond that. And then building cool businesses off the back of it. And it's like, I think a lot of people within the specific creator space don't necessarily know everything that's possible beyond just like having an email list. And so I'm trying to like explore that and just show people there are way more options outside of, again, just as much as we are excited about, like as we were saying, the starter story and the, salary transparent sheet, like we see these really big examples, but then there are also tons of people building cool, unique businesses that you might have never even heard of.
Absolutely. And you mentioned starter story, and I guess I'm curious, like, what is your take on that, or what is your take on that acquisition? Where does it fall in the context of all this?
Yeah, I mean, I think so many like takeaways. It's so cool. I've literally been watching Starter Story, not even before he like launched on YouTube. Like I think I've been following for a couple of years. And I think for one, and because I'm in the business of like founder-led content, I think like absolutely amazing case study of what it can look like to take people along the journey from A to B. Because I remember even when he was like early on sharing about leaving his job and building his side hustle in the Starbucks and just like sharing all these like tiny updates along the way. Everyone like got super like invested in the journey, right? And so he's like built an audience around the company that he's building, and then he ended up like building a media company as well. And so I think there's lots of like lessons and takeaways we can take from like how Pat built it, which I think is really interesting. But then like also what I'm looking at too is the value of, if you are building a similar kind of like media business, that I don't think a lot of people like you have to recognize that we're in such a niche world, where we like
Yeah,
are talking to newsletter
for sure.
operators and like the
Yeah.
vast majority of people don't understand that like, oh, a $1 billion company might be interested in the thing that I'm building and the audience that I have. And so I think it's just one of many like cases that we'll see to kind of validate that this is the future.
And do you see more large billion-dollar publicly traded companies buying into these creators? Like, is that trend going to continue? I know it's been obviously with, The Hustle and now Starter Story, and there's been a few other notable ones. You see that trend continuing, or is this sort of like, is it closing? Is the window closing, I guess? I'm
Yeah.
curious.
No, I think we're at just the very, very early days. And again, I think just because we're kind of like industry insiders, we think, oh, well, who else is going to do this? And I think that there is so much still potential and companies that have the money but don't yet have the distribution. And whether or not they try to build that media arm within the company, I think a lot of people realize, well, actually, it'd be way easier and more efficient to get and go invest in this other brand someone has built. And I think just this week, Plaid bought This Week in FinTech, which again is not a traditional like creator in terms of how it's more of a traditional like newsletter brand. But again, it proves that same model as we've been seeing like works. And I think with creators, we're seeing a lot of like investment in terms of people want like a face to the brand, and they've been working with like kind of larger big name creators. And I think when more companies realize, like, oh, actually, like mid-sized creators and like B2B creators, and you don't necessarily need like the Alex Earl or the Mr. Beast to like put your product out there, and actually can be way better if you find someone super aligned. I think we'll see a ton more of companies trying to like sort out what that looks like for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Those sort of niche creators, folks really talking inside baseball.
Yeah.
I guess, and I'm curious, like, if you're a creator listening to the show, are there things you can do to make you seem more desirable to those larger companies? Like, how did Pat, for example, set up Starter Story to be acquired? I'm curious what moves a creator can make at any stage.
Yeah, it's a great question. My like dream interview list is to get on with the HubSpot team and like talk about their acquisitions, because like I just would love to know how they evaluate who their target. Like I know they're so methodical there. I would actually choose Hannah Williams. But are you familiar with salary transparent sheet?
I am not. Tell me more.
So this is, I feel like, the classic creator model to acquisition pipeline. So Salary Transparent Sheet started as a TikTok account. And you might have seen them if you're on social media, where they go up and like interview people on the street and ask them, how much money do you make? And they
Nice.
obviously, the videos go viral. It's, been this like cult sensation. And I think most creators might just stop there. They say, I've got 1 million followers. I'm getting brand deals. I'm good. What else is even possible here? And, from the early days, I felt like she, and eventually has a little bit of a team behind her, built more intentionally as like, how do we actually expand this as a business, like create this mission around financial transparency and helping more people like make money. And so again, their like natural transition was like, okay, let's get a newsletter going. And so she's been building this email list for 2 years. And again, as we know, like an email list is an asset that I think many creators still don't fully understand how valuable it is. And then from there, they have launched, different products, and I'm not even fully sure about what their suite looks like now. And high quality storytelling, all this stuff again to like serve that core audience that they're building for on social. So for a creator who's listening to this, I think it's like study that model if you want to build beyond just like, oh, I have, a couple 100,000 followers and they like my content and I get some brand deals. It's like, how do you build this ecosystem? How do you get off of just the social media platform that you're on? And then how do you like leverage those relationships into other forms of revenue, basically?
Yeah, it's definitely a stage with a lot of the folks that we work with. They are at that stage where they want to almost grow up and become a business. And I guess I'm curious, one of the questions that a lot of folks have at that stage is they think about what we would call key face risk. Just this idea that you've built your brand through your face. And even at certain stages, we'll tell people like, yeah, you should use your face. You should put a personality in your brand. That personality is you. That's why people subscribe, all of those wonderful things. But then you sort of reach a stage where you want to scale a business outside of yourself. Definitely in some of the work that you've done with Creator Diaries and just examining all of those creators, how are creators sort of eliminating that key face risk, becoming a brand and not becoming like, hey, I'm Joe Podcast, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly the key, like, challenge point that people are at, and, like, if you've noticed, the examples that we've talked about, we say Pat Wall's starter story, Hannah, salary transparent sheet, like, even with me, like, I struggled for a while because I was like, "I'm building my personal brand, it's under me," and I was like and I wrote from a newsletter, it was just my name, and I was like, "No, I need an entity that feels like it could grow from beyond just me, when eventually I will have not enough time to build this out." And so I think that does de-risk you in a way. So you build your personal brand, and then you say, I'm building this as a brand, as a business, as a community, what have you. And I think that that is this probably single common denominator with everyone that I, interview, and the kind of the businesses that I pay attention to, is that people that recognize, okay, yeah, I create content. Some call themselves a creator, some don't. Like, I think that's a fun conversation in terms of like, what do you think of yourself as? But they would all say, like, I'm building this entity that is bigger than me, that can outlast me, and that is really the founder hat at play to realize, like, okay, this can't just be reliant on my face. Like, that's not sustainable.
Right, right. And do you see like that first play being either an email newsletter and building that asset outside of probably your social following, or what other plays are there, I guess, to sort of establish that brand?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think it looks different for different people. And I do think some people get caught up in that in the early days of being like, well, I don't know what this entity is that I'm building and how it all connects. And it's like, I think, again, that's why I still think building an email list of some sort is first step, because you can change the name of your newsletter, you can change the name of your agency, like all of that is fine. Like, people are, following you for your insight, your personality, etc. But I think a lot of it really is mental. And it's like, if study like the entrepreneurship world and read all these entrepreneurship books, like they say, like so much of it is just like, do you have this mindset and this approach and these ways that you're thinking about the business? And that's really, I think, step one is just thinking about it a little bit more like an entrepreneur, a founder, as opposed to this creator that's just like thinking about the next piece of content they're going to make.
Yeah, that can be hard. That can be hard because creating content is, as you know, an absolute grind.
It is a grind.
Yeah, but no, I think that's really interesting. Let's talk about IRL. I know you were just at New Media Summit. We just restarted this podcast, and I feel like every single episode we talk about New Media Summit. Um, we all had a great time, but tell me, and I know you've recently written a little bit. I saw a few tweets about sort of your bull case on real events and how those can be, I think, core to a lot of these creator media businesses. But yeah, tell me, why do you like events?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I'm not the first person to say, yeah, events are cool, IRL is great. Like, I think we all are on the same page for the most part. Um, where I see the really like cool opportunity right now, and I think I saw this in action in the New Media Summit, is like the beauty and the power of the internet is that we can all connect on like a singular thing that we all have in common. And so, like in our case, it's like everyone's generally interested in either, building a media business of some sort, whether it's YouTube, podcast, newsletter. Obviously, that's a simplification of who's in the room. But I think because of the internet, did I know of this event? Did I meet these people? And did I meet them in real life? And me just living in my day to day life in London, like I'm not interacting with the same group. You know, I know these people exist, but without the internet, it's almost impossible to meet. And so, where I think this is really cool, and I see like several examples of this and people I've talked to, but I think for this creator model, the way that I think about it is like if you're as a creator, you are almost like a label of sorts, right? You're attracting people that are interested in the things you have to say and your experiences, etc. And when you start to build this like audience or community, what people don't realize is that your audience is probably likely to get along really well. And so it's like for Matt, for example, right? Like the thing that a lot of us had in common is that we follow Matt and we knew, we knew the work that he did and we're like, oh, we'll find this interesting. So then we all have come from different worlds, but have this in common. And I think that's like really, really valuable. And that's why it felt so like that, like high value for people. Colin Rocker is someone who else comes to mind who he's building, he's like a career creator. He's in New York. And one of his things, again, name building a brand, he's building for the first. And it's all people who like first in their family to do something, whether that's, corporate, career or go into college, et cetera. Like it's a wide net. But like he's been talking about how exciting these events have been. He's been gathering people IRL that again wouldn't have probably met. And so I think that's the like real promise and excitement. I think that literally every creator, because of the nature of like the nicheness of the creator economy, is that you could be really excited about herb gardening and connect with other people that are and have a little conference, in Colorado and people show up and they like are so excited to be there.
Herb gardening. It's a good
Um,
one.
I'm sure it
Uh,
exists.
I bet. No, I bet. Seed
Yeah.
collecting. I know that's a thing.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a good point though. Like, I have a small audience locally, and I think about doing local events, and I worry like, will people like each other? And I think a lot of creators probably get in their heads about, will they like me? They have a relationship with you online, but I think when you're in person, it's different. And we all went through COVID now 5 years ago, but I do think we got used to making these deep connections online. And now all of a sudden, the idea of going to like a creator happy hour, like that's an event. It used to be, I don't know, like early in my career, it was like, oh yeah, we go to happy hour. I would go to I was working in SF, downtown SF at the time. And so there was a lot of different startup, a lot of VCs would have these little events and things, and you would just not even plan it and just hop around. And now thinking about doing that, it's like an event in my mind. Maybe I'm permanently scarred. But yeah, no, I think there's a ton of value. And I guess I'm curious, are you seeing, is that like an established pattern with the rising creators that you're sort of examining? They're
Yeah.
having more events, they're doing more live things, or is this still sort of people are just experimenting?
Almost everyone that I'm speaking to that, and I would say this is like a niche model of this like creator building as a founder. Like it's not for everyone. Say if you're, you are a consumer creator and want to sell, beauty products or something. But um, for the space that I'm kind of tracking, everyone that has created this really like high value engaged audience is realizing, oh, these people, want to meet each other and are getting value from this community in whatever way that looks like. I think of Michael Kaufman and Catskill Crew. Like he's doing like local he's straight up rebuilding a town because people are so desperate to meet each other and have live events. But then again, it looks so different for different people. But in some way, whether it's like a yearly summit or a yearly gathering, there's a couple of communities that I'm in that's kind of their approach, where it's light in the IRL space, but that one point of connection in the year is enough for people to feel like that's really valuable, and other people's are more live workshops, like so many things. But I think nearly everyone I speak to is thinking about that in some capacity.
Yeah. And are they paid mostly, or are you just seeing for the good of the community, or are creators finding sponsors? I know that's another way to?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think completely depends on your business model. So I think if you have a high cost community or like a paid community of sorts, I think it makes sense to have this as a perk of being in the community that, you get to come. But obviously if you have something that's more like the New Venus Summit, that makes sense that it's like ticketed and charged and whatnot. And then I think there are others that like with Creator Economy NYC, like those are sponsored events, right? Like you're able to say, okay, I'm gathering these people that are high value to these advertisers, Teachable sponsor this, basically that is, very aligned for that brand. And so therefore the events are free and anyone can go.
Have you thought about having an event? Um, I'm curious. I just, you mentioned you lived in London. Did not know that.
It is like a, mental barrier and think, oh, it's actually really hard to pull this off and pull logistics together. I think someone else asked me that recently. Like, are you considering this like community model? Like, I would say I'm interested in it. Like, I'm interested in exploring what it looks like to gather people interested in the same thing. And again, I think I'm still kind of testing it. Like, how many of us are out there that are really, interested and would kind of show up, as opposed to like I've just been like creating content for a while. So I'm in my own creator to founder journey as well. So we'll see.
Nice. Yeah. I think it I think another challenge too, just logistically, is you build these audiences online and that is detached from geography. I mean, like when we choose where to host an event, we sort of choose the center of the country and hope that that's the easiest for people to get to. New York makes a lot of sense, but I'm sure if you have an audience that's spread across the nation, it can be difficult to even host an
Yeah.
event.
Well, like something cool like Jay Klaus is doing. So he's got his, high ticket creator science community
Hmm.
and they're just pegging it to the conference, to the KITS Craft and Commerce conference. So it's like, can you peg it to something that people are already traveling for? Like I think there's ways you could get, you know, creative with it basically.
That's funny. We were just talking
Oh,
about
really?
how to sort of like hijack a conference. Not that Jay's hijacking craft and commerce, but no, it makes a lot of sense. It's like it's an opportunity, and I think he's doing. I want to say like a two. Is it a 2 day event just before craft and commerce?
I'm not sure. I know he was hosting something, but I didn't see
Hmm.
the details in terms of what it was going to be.
I think there's also like just thinking as a human. There's like, man, you go to a 2 day conference and you're pretty wiped.
Yeah.
We put one on and I was pretty drained, but I couldn't imagine doing a 1 or 2 day separate conference rolling right into a bigger conference. It'd just be a lot. But it is an opportunity to get your audience together. So I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I think like tying back to the creator economy, like I always go back to like the beauty of the creator economy is that like you get to design what like feels good to you and what feels exciting. So if you're like that actually sounds terrible, don't maybe that's not your business model. That's fine. There's plenty others, So I think that's always like a fun reframe of maybe you want to host Pilates classes, like maybe that feels like your thing, or maybe you want to, I don't know. There's so many things that it doesn't have to feel like.
Yeah, yeah, no, I like that point. Like as a creator, you have agency over how you run your business. So that makes me ask this question on that continuum of going from like creator to founder to media brand. There's going to be things that you probably don't want to do, but it's like, hey, if you want to grow up and become, get acquired, do have this exit, you have to do this. What are those stages? Like what is one of those things that at least in your study you found like, yeah, they probably didn't want to have to do that, but you kind of have to.
Yeah, no, totally. I think I've been talking about this a lot recently. I've been seeing it come up a lot with creators that are scaling basically beyond what they can handle, and they're above the 200K mark or several hundred thousand, and they're like realizing, oh, there's not enough time in the day to do what I need to do. And I think the key moment that feels like, okay, are you going to be a creator, kind of stay small, or are you going to think of more like a business owner? Is putting on that business owner hat to be like, what can I get off my plate? What can I delegate? what can I hire for, which is a really fun conversation because I think a lot of people,
Tough one.
it's really
Yeah.
glamorized, a solo person business. Even I've experienced this where I'm like, I actually don't enjoy project management. I don't enjoy, XX. And if I could take that off my plate, I would actually feel better to like keep that vision. So I think that is really those growing pains. And it looks different for different people, but it's like figuring out what you can do to delegate to get to where you want to go.
Yeah. And do you think companies like HubSpot, when they come in and are interested in acquiring, do you think part of the pitch is we're going to do all that stuff, like the operations, the managing employment contracts, we're going to do that. You just keep making videos. Like, is that the negotiation? Is that part of the deal?
I think so. I mean, I've not necessarily been at the table negotiating these, but
Yeah, yeah.
I would say, for salary transparency, like I know that like Hannah and the other person that she's doing that she's working with that are leading the content, like that was their pitch to basically it's like it was like an acqui-hire investment, right? Where they're still on needing it, but then it's like some of that pressure, some of the back end stuff's taken off their plate, some of the production workload. So like her gift, the thing she loves doing is actually making the content, having that high level vision, and then she doesn't have to worry necessarily about the running the business side of things.
Yeah. Which for a lot of creators, I think is a good deal. I think the risk is losing control of that vision and your content and ultimately your audience. I guess I'm trying to think of any examples of these sort of acquihires that went bad. I guess like losing the talent is really the risk. I
Yeah.
think there's some big ones in like more entertainment space. So Alex Cooper, the Barstool podcast host, like that was pretty public. But I guess thinking in sort of business media, I haven't heard of any of them going too sour.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the thing to think about is that like you don't have to be gunning for an X figure exit and HubSpot to buy you for it to. And I think that, again, like but going back to the promise of the creator economy is that plenty of people could be doing what they love and running several six-figure business and be happy, and just say, okay, maybe my goal isn't to be acquired or to scale this or to attract investment, but this is letting me, do what I love, and that's could feel good enough.
I guess another question on that is how large do you think, like a lot of the creators that you're examining and doing these case studies on, how large are these businesses? Like what is like a typical creator business that you're studying?
I mean, I wouldn't say there's a typical number. I think you would be well, you wouldn't be surprised given the nature of what you do, but most people would be surprised at the amount of people that are running seven-figure businesses, and it's them
Yeah.
and a couple of, maybe some contractors, maybe one employee, and some VAs and things. Like I think that is really that like lean creator business that is very, very successful. But I think, several six figures is like very, very like light for people in terms of if they again have built an audience, even if it's small, if they're having a newsletter, different revenue streams, I think that path is quite quick to get there.
I think most people would be surprised how much certain folks are making just with what would appear to be a small audience, but having just extremely high LTV, having a lot of authority and trust in the content that you're producing. There's really healthy businesses out there, but it is hard and it takes a lot of time. And I don't think there's any shortcuts. And I think that's where, at least in my experience working with creators trying to make that founder transition, is there is fall off after like year 2, 3, because it's not feeling like it's working. Costs start to pile up, opportunity costs, things like that. So, but for the people that break through, I think it is a healthy business. It's just sort of recognizing, I guess, the patterns on what makes those folks break through.
Yeah, which I think that's again something I'm like obsessed with kind of tracking in my newsletter. I'm like, what are the patterns we see? What is that like? does this feel just like a one-off case because Michael's crazy and he's just, doing his own thing up in the Catskills, and like what feels like, oh no, actually every creator I speak with is doing this thing that like you need to know. And I think still jury's still out on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good segue. So like you mentioned IRL, like a question I have for you is like what other things are rising creators doing differently than the rest of the field? Not to put you on the spot, but I'll put you on the spot.
We've talked about the newsletter thing, so I don't want to go too in depth with it. I think that, but that is separating the top 10% of creators or people that are building more intentionally are thinking about how they're building an email list.
And you see that email list adding on to an existing large social following.
Yeah.
Because we work with, I feel like there's also this segment of creators, especially in the field we work in, where they start with the email list and they're trying to grow that audience first, as opposed to, I know you've profiled a lot of creators where they have large TikTok followings or IG or what have you. And the newsletter sort of layers on top of that nicely. But yeah, I think both are valid. But
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like there's several little nuances we could go into how these different people deal. And I think we see a lot, especially in the B2B space and LinkedIn space. Like you see people are starting with a newsletter and building alongside as they go, which I think is great. Kind of the category I'm in. I'm not really a creator, but I think the big opportunity here, and I've been trying to do a lot of research around this in terms of how many creators out there actually, have X amount of followers, have this money, and they're not doing newsletter. And there's a lot. There's a lot of people that are they're leaving it on the table, and what would that look like if they kind of expanded to their own audience?
for sure, there's a ton.
Yeah.
There's newsletters are still sort of niche when it comes to the broader creator economy. Another topic that I know I really want to talk to you about is the accidental business that your mom started from a newsletter or a Substack, correct? Or TikTok. Give us a story.
In 50s. Yeah. So this is
Yeah.
the funniest not funny, but like craziest story where this is the closest I've kind of encountered a creator business from the inside and really seen like, holy crap, like this is actually what happens if you build 1,000 true fans and you build for 1,000 true fans and like what's possible. My mom quit her job and she was doing tech sales, big tech career, and bought a house in Italy, started documenting that like you
Bless
know,
her. Bless
finding
her
the
heart.
house. It's crazy. Yeah, it's so cool. And we one of the things that we both really loved was like looking at houses for sale and just very like real estate people and
Hmm.
finding cool properties, etc. So in the process of like she went viral one random for something and got her TikTok following to like 20K or something. And again, this was like 2 years ago before, like, I feel like even now, we're like, build an email list, like everyone knew. And I was like, we should start, and we started her on Substack. And like, we should just start this and see what that would look like to like talk more about your journey, curate real estate listings or whatnot. It just like exploded. It was super cool. And like really over the span of 2 years, have like she's built this following of like 70K people. Again, it's not, if you were just looking at maybe brand deals, you would say, okay, she's not really making a ton of money. Like that's not really her bag. And she's, in her 50s, like she's not your typical creator by any means. But what I've seen, again, this like validates so much of what I now believe about the creator economy in terms of like finding your people and then creating experiences for them, or building around what they're looking for. She found that a lot of people, her core audience were these like middle-aged women that had the money to spend, like a very valuable demographic, and they like loved travel, and wanted like experiences to go to. So she's like, let me start hosting some retreats. And some of them were like real estate focused in terms of people that wanted to move abroad, and others were just like for fun. But that's been kind of like her surprise business model of sorts. Is she's got a paid Substack community. She's making money through her retreats. And then she's also doing a little bit of, I'm trying to kind of push her to do more of like education and a community model as well. But yeah, it's been a fun like experiment to kind of witness from the inside of it.
That's awesome. What is the name of the Substack?
Uh, so her account is Texas to Tuscany, and the Substack is Olive and Pine. So I can send you the links. So they're
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah. Well,
separate entities in a way.
the TikTok that made her go viral, was it just one? Was it or was she posting a lot?
She was like, we were trying to get a following. Like, I never thought that it would take off in the way that it did, but I was like, this is so cool. Let's post about it. And like, she's had a series of several ones really go viral that I'm like, oh, again, we're tapping into something here. People are
Mhm.
interested. Like, how can we build around this basically?
That's awesome. It's funny that that is like a segment of creator is sort of the second career creator who had a very successful career. Sounds like your mom had a great career, is now sort of in this next stage of her life, and they turn to writing and building an audience. And I think it's really cool. And I'm sure she's surprised. Is she surprised by the sort of the how it's happened, or did she just expect it?
Yeah, no, I'm super surprised. I think on one hand, people just like hear creator A and they think influencer and they think someone that's 22 sharing their outfits. Like, again, this is when I realize I'm in a bubble, like very much by the things that I like talking about every day. Cause I'm like, you go out and talk to anyone in my family, like they do not know. They're like, what does that mean? What is a creator business? So I think that tells me A, we're still early. But B, like I have done so much educating around as she's going. I'm like, no, like people are built, doing very similar things to what you have, and they're making, good money. They figured this or that out. And it's like she's got the thing that a lot of people want. There are plenty of people that have started businesses and travel businesses, and they're like, we killed to have 50K TikTok followers, and so I think she's been so surprised of like the value really of the audience that she's building, and how she can use that in different ways.
Good for her. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
It's
I'll
cool.
definitely check it out.
Yeah.
Italy is on my list of places I need to get out to. I've
You
heard
do
great
need to check it
things.
out. Yeah, yeah. It's fun. It's going from like B2B tech world all day and then like looking at pretty pictures of villas in Italy. I'm like, maybe I should be a travel creator. This is great.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, it's wide open.
Yeah.
Well, it's awesome. Thank you so much for sitting in today. I really appreciate it. Is there anything you'd like to plug? Give us what are you working on? What's going on?
Yeah. So you can find me like LinkedIn really as my main channel. So you can find me Taylor Cromwell on LinkedIn. And Creator Diaries is the newsletter. So you can find me at Creator Diaries as well.
Awesome. CreatorDiaries.com.
It's no, I still have a B. I've been meaning to talk about it.
No, it's
But
okay.
find me on
It's
LinkedIn and
okay.
you can find everything else you need.
Yes, yes. LinkedIn first. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Taylor. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks so much.